Is AI image generation the end of art as we know it, or is it just simply the next evolution of artistic expression?
I wanted to bring unique artwork to individual clients to really have that personal basis with that every single piece that I make. That's what I wanted my whole brand and every single one of my products to be, and to have an impact with this technology.
In this founder interview, we'll hear about the journey of Infinite founder Grant Cooper and becoming an artist, a technologist, and an entrepreneur with a novel approach to creating infinite value for clients and patrons.
I can't make people use the AI, but I can use it because I understand it, and I could use this to bring the future of what art could be on people's walls. And to me, it kind of makes me happy enough knowing that there's a demand for this, and people are really satisfied when I can deliver to them.
Learn key secrets for launching and growing a successful AI-based art business that transforms lives while it also generates meaningful revenue streams. Greetings, Doc John here, and I am the Entreprofessor. Welcome to the channel. I'm so excited you're here. I'm really excited to have a special guest on today, founder Grant Cooper, founder of Infinite. Grant does AI art, generating joy and happiness through AI-generated art. So Grant, welcome to the channel. Really glad you're here.
Great, thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us about Infinite.
Yep, so what I do is I use cutting edge artificial intelligence to generate custom artwork for clients on their independent needs. Simple as it is. There you go.
Nice. So who desperately needs what you're doing? Who's your kind of ideal client?
Yeah, I would categorize the types of clients I have into two different categories. The first one would be people who just want some nice custom artwork on their walls in their home or place of work. And the other category of people, I'd say, would be more for commercial use. So some of those examples of work that I have done would be, magazine covers or logos for companies.
Okay. What would be an example of somebody's all of a sudden, I really need something very unique? What would be the kind of that journey for the customer right in that moment when they're like, I need to call Infinite to help me with this?
Yeah, it's funny. Because there's a common problem not a lot of people expect when they end up facing it, which is when you have unlimited amount of creative potential at your fingertips, where do you go? What choices do you make, right? And it makes it very intimidating. I don't know what to do. So part of what I learned to do for my clients is the intuitive process of sitting down one-on-one and walking through the steps of ideas and bring it in a way where it's my client's idea, right? That's the most important thing. What's going on their wall or is going to represent part of their business, it really is a thought that came from the core idea of them. So it is a lot of psychology, because I'm running the show, so I have to steer everything in a way where the choices I make are because of my client, and frame the story that way, because I'm also, not just selling a piece of art, I'm kind of selling a story that people usually are pretty excited to talk about when they get a piece from me.
That's excellent. Yeah, and I've been watching your career for a couple of years now. I think what I think is pretty interesting, the last 6 to 12 months, everybody's talking about AI and generative AI and all these different things, but you were way ahead of the curve. You were doing this before anybody knew what ChatGPT was.
It's like half a year before, roughly.
Okay. Yeah. So you were definitely ahead of the curve.
Great.
Here's a question I have for you. Are you an artist? Are you a hacker? Are you a technologist? Like, what would you say?
That's a great question. Yeah. I get that question a lot. And I think what's more fair is to consider myself a creative, right?
Okay.
A creative, and calling myself an entrepreneur, I think it does characterize what I am and what I do, but it is also such a dirty buzzword in this day and age. So I typically avoid giving myself that title. But really, as simple as it comes down to, especially for what my clients should hear about what I'm doing for them, I'm a creative, and that's who they're working with.
Nice. So what's your unfair advantage if someone's going out into the world looking for this type of service? What is it where they look at what you're doing and say, wow, you are crushing everybody else. I want to work with you.
Yeah, this answer divides also into two categories, so I kind of have half answers.
Yeah.
The first answer is going to be comparing the service I'm offering compared to traditional, analog artists who, do the work by hand, like art always has been done up until now. And for me, the advantages I have in this field is through custom art commissions, right? That's important. Custom really changes the frame of what you can expect as a product. I'm a lot faster and cheaper than should you, commission an artist to do something for you by hand. You would expect a time frame of at least a few months, and the cost you're paying is more going to be associated with the cost of living that's necessary for the artist to cover, as well as if the art isn't digital, you're also paying for the material cost, and that adds up a lot. For me, really, we're looking at like an average timeline of about 2 weeks, and the material cost for me is very little, especially when it comes to digital.
Yeah. So what's thinking about like some of the artwork you've produced so far? Like what's maybe something that really stands out? Like I am really proud of that piece, or this one was really unique, or I really had a lot of fun with that. Like what's a piece you've done that really stands out?
Oh, wow. I love all the work I do. Because it's just the passion of what I'm doing. It's really having fun with kind of, like seeing where I could stress test the creative applications of this AI. But to answer, I'd say this is an example I love bringing to people, is exploring and experimenting with like new mediums that usually are never considered to be combined. So one example is a form of art. It's a physical form of art called kintsugi. It's a Japanese form of art, and it involves porcelain, usually like a piece of pottery or a vase, broken either accidentally or intentionally, and being fixed back together with melted gold. So the finished product is a pretty beautiful looking vase or piece of pottery, where all the cracks and seams of it have been fixed with gold, and it's usually a very beautiful looking piece of physical work. However, of course, it's very niche, it's very expensive, and not a lot of people know about it. So what I found was a very interesting twist is, hey, people aren't really doing a lot of painterly focused work of this pretty unique art form. So what I did is I got a lot of publicly available images for reference to train my AI of this art form. And I ended up making really beautiful pieces that also combine other keywords and other concepts, like a painting of a Roman statue in the style of kintsugi. You can imagine that sounds pretty cool. A Roman marble statue that was broken and repaired together with seams of gold. And it's a nice, really any style goes, but one of my favorites is a watercolor. I think it's a really nice way to portray kind of this art form and this unique twist of combining factors. But what makes it more fun is any idea in your head, like what's another kind of statue we want to look like this? What's another art form that it's painted as? And the endless possibilities make it kind of one of my favorite, because it was nice to discover, and a lot of my clients love this work. I'd say it's one of my favorite examples. There's a lot, but that's a good one off the top of my head.
Nice. That's excellent.
Cool.
So talk a little bit about, training AI models and those kinds of things. So I think a lot of times, the world at large is thinking like ChatGPT, or for images like DALL-E, those kinds of things. But, from what we've discussed in the past, I mean, you use different types of technologies, and you take a much more, I guess I want to say more complex approach, maybe just
a technical approach, I'd say.
Yeah. More technical approach. That's probably a better term. Yeah. So tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah. I'd say that was really my roots of how I got into this kind of work, because a lot of other people are able to and are trying to start up their versions of work and their versions of companies off of kind of what I'm doing. However, for them, I don't want to speak for other groups of people, but I feel like what most people could rationally observe is people's technical understanding of this creative application is very limited, because it's really not necessary. That's all about the whole low code, no code trend, because it's a lot more functional when you don't need to have spent all the amount of time and experience required to understand exactly how it works. So when people kind of save that time, I feel like it gives me an advantage when I understand that edge. So training my AI, for example, has to do with a lot more intuitive knowledge about certain concepts that I train the AI with, how they interact with other concepts, how the brain of the AI running on my computer works, and how different versions of AI work, because I do work with multiple variations of AI. The primary one I stick with is called Stable Diffusion, in case you're interested in looking into how this technology works.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the most I can say without breaking into a lot of technical lingo that starts to not sound like English. But I feel like that gets across kind of the point. For the angle I take comes from understanding the data and the machine and the technology behind it. And I feel like that drives not only like the results of my work, but kind of the passion behind what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and you mentioned like the idea of like showing it different examples of maybe a type of art. So, I mean, are there other examples? Like you mentioned the one form of art where you showed it a lot of different examples of that. Do you do that? Do you find you have to do that even for more common types of work of art, or are there certain ones that AI already kind of has figured out, or how does that?
I would say what's really common, and this actually goes back to the second half of my answer that actually I forgot to answer when it comes to the unfair advantage that I have. And it does plug in very exactly to answering your current question, which is the other kind of business that I compete with, which is other people making AI art using more or less the exact same architecture that I am using. Yeah. So really the hard part is selling how I am using this in a more unique sense. The same tool, how I am using it and mastering it differently. It's very hard to describe through my technical knowledge the difference and the advantage I have through this field, because it really does come down to a technical difference. And kind of to go back to answer is, from what I see, a lot of these other AI art businesses, what they're doing is it's very generic in a sense of, let's say you wanted to imagine something in AI to make a beautiful image of. Whatever you type into Google, you're going to get a pretty similar image to what these kind of people make. So moving away from generalization, stuff that very specific examples I've seen with my own eyes is stuff like paintings of a beautiful waterfall. Right? And then that's it. That's the product. That's what they do with their AI, and they sell versions of that. And that's their business. And then I don't really see them kind of exploring working uniquely with their clients, expanding the capabilities to commercial uses. And a thing that I do too, that I notice a lot of others don't, is I work directly with artists. Because the AI has a lot of limitations, right? A lot of people, like to speak up about how the AI is really bad at generating a human hand, right? A human hand is something our human eyes and brains are very used to understanding in a very particular sense. So when the AI very easily messes up, 5% of a little bit of everything in the scene, which our brains can easily look past, it can't look past it when it messes up 5% of the hand. So as a result, one of the ways I can work around this is, instead of like other AI artists, is finding ways to avoid that, or working really, really hard to try and get one image with a good looking hand, is I work with career artists to touch up manually these little errors. So it's not just hands, right? It's a lot of other details, but I think that's a good example of a frequent requirement that I have to work with a lot of my clients. And I feel like it makes my pipeline pretty unique, involving other people in the process. And I also think, again, it makes the final product something a little more different.
Yeah. Well, it seems like even just what you described there seems more like what I would consider the right way to think of AI, is not like the thing that does everything, but
Yeah.
it really drives and assists the process. But at the same time, there's these places where you're bringing in experts, you're bringing in artists, you're bringing in those that can augment or just build on what's been done by the AI. So I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting.
No, I agree. Great. Thank you.
So tell me about, like, I mean, for your clients, like, how's their world transformed once they, get to know what you're doing and start to leverage what your services?
I would say it's a really good question. I feel like that also helps me realize that I should be like doing follow-up questionnaires or getting the perspective, because I don't really I don't really consider how it positively impacts like people, specifically like the exact products I have delivered to them, because it always has been just a general cloud in my head of like, oh, something nice on the wall. Oh, I remember working with this kid with it. That was cool. And it never really crossed my mind for being something more than that. But I guess it really kind of, I guess going a bit off from the question, but I think is kind of an important perspective that reminds me of when you ask this, is kind of my vision for why I started doing this is I have a lot of wanderlust about whatever technology we have in the future, how it improves our lives in all these inconceivable ways. And I kind of saw a little bit of that when I first discovered and started learning how to use this AI that I now use, as the base of my business. And it really came from the understanding of there is this amazing technology that does the craziest things in a really fast amount of time. And even to me, who understands how it technically works, it still is amazing every single time I make something new. So it really was like, how do I make this tech something that people can use right now, right? I can't make people use the AI, but I can use it because I understand it. And I could use this to bring the future of what art could be on people's walls. And to me, it kind of makes me happy enough knowing that there's a demand for this and people are really satisfied when I can deliver to them. So really just being able to start what I'm doing at all was kind of like the satisfying mark for the impact I think I can make on people.
Nice. So tell me about the other side of it, challenges, failures. What are some of the things that have worked well, or maybe what are things that happened in the environment that have had an impact on you or affected you? I'd just be interested in your a little bit more on your journey there.
Yeah. I would say learning to cut my losses, because especially at the beginning, I had to explore a lot of different avenues for how to make what I started more profitable. Because at the beginning, as one of your students, I'm also very lucky to have a specific background in entrepreneurship. So I do have that kind of groundwork understanding of kind of the brazen reality that you need to approach when it comes to starting a new business, and the strategies you need to adapt so you could really start snowballing your momentum. And this was a lot at the beginning, because a lot of my decisions I knew that I should make also kind of ran a little counter to the passion and the drive of what I started doing, but I know that's kind of the cost of being an entrepreneur. So some of those examples would be, diverging from what I initially wanted to do, right? I wanted to bring unique artwork to individual clients to really have that personal basis with that every single piece that I make. That's what I wanted my whole brand and every single one of my products to be. And it's what I wanted to have an impact with this technology. But I quickly learned, hey, sometimes people really don't care if they have one of one, right? It's a nice thing with a demand, of course. But when it really comes to what a lot of my clients want, sometimes they're happy with looking at a library of stuff I've already printed and just ordering one of many. And it kind of hurt a little to order 200 pieces of paper, go out, work with a printing company, get them all printed out into different like orders of 20 different of my most popular orders. But it was a smart decision because I'm still selling through that stock, and doing so, saved me money in advance. But it kind of took the sacrifice of kind of letting go of the intention of what I really wanted to build or, kind of do in the first place. Another example of kind of a failure I've encountered is one method I've tried to use to kind of spread and commercialize what I was doing was to work with other people who are really excited to kind of get in the world of what I'm doing, right? So an example is, I explain to someone what I'm doing, and usually, it's other people are really excited about getting in on the ground floor of how this stuff works is other people my age. So it's really interesting when someone is asking me all these questions like, okay, like where can I go to learn about all this stuff? Like, what are some good websites? Like how can I start training this AI on my own computer? Like, I want to do the same thing you're doing. And as happy as I am for them to do that, I'm like, hey, this is an opportunity, because that's a very frequent occurrence that I've encountered. A lot of people who want to discover how they could do what I'm doing too. Yeah. So I figured, hey, you know what? I can save them a lot of trouble and kind of give myself an advantage by saying, hey, what if I make an agreement with you where I can sell you like 60 of my prints at this price, and whatever you sell them for, right? You can sell them exactly like I sell mine. Right? I get like a X% cut. And, and it's exciting too, because I'm actually working one-on-one with them. Like, okay, what are the 60 prints that I'm going to give them, right? It's their choice too, creatively. So it's not just like they're selling my stuff that they're, associating with for no reason. So it really is their own thing. So experimenting with that has been tough, because it also involves a lot of trust, where I give someone, inventory and I trust that they keep track of whatever. And from some people, I haven't heard back from at all. But it's fine, right? Because for me, it's like, okay, minus $80 here, minus $50 there. And that is, I feel like it's a relatively small loss compared to the risk and the impact that I'm willing to try and see on the upside, which has worked out for some people.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're almost like experimenting with new channels to deliver your product, where, whether it's someone who's kind of apprenticing with you and at the same time reselling some of your work, or finding different ways to deliver, if not everyone wants a custom piece, but you can create some they're good sellers that you can produce in that way.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
Right.
So what about, I know this is a hot topic in the world of AI generated art. What about copyrights? What about intellectual property? Like, talk to me about that a little bit.
I keep very on top of news with this. And there's two realities to it, right? One is understanding the moral concerns, which is A, pretty subjective, and B, very conditional, is the knowledge that this space is the Wild West, right? So I've spoken to a lot of different copyright lawyers, because this is one of my first concerns, especially when I started my business, is if I'm gonna make and sell art, it's from my brand, my company, especially if I'm gonna do commercial work. It's important for my clients to also know that the copyright is safe with them. So I have to meet a lot of very complicated mediums between the current legal understanding, the moral understanding, and really what I'm willing to do to help my client feel comfortable to achieve the goal of what they want to get when working with me. So some really interesting news, kind of to cover, summarizing a lot of the news I keep in touch with, is there is a current class action suit in Northern California district that is specifically against the architecture of suit against the architecture of the AI I am using. It's very interesting. Most of the points there go into the technical nature of the AI, so I don't know if we'd do a lot of use kind of summarizing that for the next like 5 to 10 minutes. But if you would like to look into that, it is a pretty significant, I'd say legal front on a lot of this stuff. The other is the U.S. Patent Office, in virtually every state, is frequently refusing to allow copyright from AI-generated work. There is a lot of news heated around this topic because the guy trying to make the point by getting his work copyrighted by the U.S. Patent Office is trying to make it a statement by getting this AI-made work trademarked. So a lot of things come with it. First of all, his intention of making sure the Copyright Office knows it is 100% made by AI and untouched from any other point, I'd say, is the first significant thing. And second is kind of the battle between, there's two legal terms for kind of the use of art. Usually it's on the top of my head because I'm supposed to know this stuff. I'm just kind of caught off guard right now. Yeah, transformative versus derivative. Those are the two key terms in this kind of battle, which is transformative work is good. Transformative work is work you get to keep because you have modified it to a reasonable degree to call it your own, right? So that means you could take like the Mona Lisa. Well, actually, that's different because it's already, public access work. So let's say you take a Banksy work, right? And then you scribble something all over it. And to a certain point of what you add to it, it now is your original piece of artwork. Mm-hmm. That's transformative media. But derivative is opposite. Derivative means you don't get the right for this type of content. It still belongs in its likeness to the original creator of this content. So the kind of real battle is what you do to a piece of work, whether or not AI just makes it and you don't touch it, right? Which category does this belong to? And the other kind of thing is, let's say an AI makes a piece of work and I or an artist I commission to touch up for a client, does whatever change is necessary. Is that transformative? Is it still, derivative? That's where the Wild West is. No court has really decided what crosses which line, especially when it comes to AI work. That's kind of the world we're in right now. Is I'm in the forefront of both having to be careful, but also stress testing what the market can really accept in this world.
Nice. So what would you say if someone were interested in this business, starting to kind of aspire to do some of the things you're doing? What would be advice you would give about where to get started? Maybe even just, handful of like, what tools would you suggest someone use to get started? Just be interested in what would you say to somebody who's really looking at this saying, I want to build some kind of a business in this area, or I want to be involved in this type of art?
Yeah. First, it's a lot of legwork, actually, surprisingly. You'd think a lot of the AI work you could do would be very easy to automate. I can't say that's more wrong, especially if you want to do it right. First is doing research on stable diffusion, right? When you understand the basics of it, it will give you a huge advantage on understanding what different AI that are out there, ones you can download on your computer, ones that are commercially exist and run off of servers, that you could pay monthly to use as a service. I use a whole host. I use a whole combination of my own trained models and paid services because some are better for what my clients need than others. So a good starting point is research, right? Figure out what AI you want to start with, what's easier to use. Because I started pretty deep. I started pretty technical. I already knew AI, and that's the world I went into. So I can't really recommend specific names that I started with. I feel like that would be unfair. But also secondarily, understanding how do you bring it physical, right? You'd think it's pretty simple to have a high resolution image and then just click print, pay the bill, have it delivered wherever. There is so much more you need to do, especially if you care about quality, if you care about making an impression on your clients. There's 50,000 more steps in between. One, for example, that saved me a ton of money with printing is ordering, massive bulk order of stock photographer's paper from a paper warehouse, and walk with my own 2 feet down to a printing store. And after months and months of trial and error and a lot of cost of experimental printing, figure out which printing machines and which settings on those printing machines at that printing shop nearby give me the best combination of quality and cost effectiveness. And there's a lot of compromises. And this just works because I figured out a nice median of price and material cost for something that's a few blocks away from me. So for you, it's definitely going to be different, whatever your situation is. Ordering online is always going to be a lot more expensive. But I think you could still pave a pretty good path, especially with like international clients that I've had. I have to order online, and it still is pretty cost effective. But when it really comes to having control over the process of your product and how you're producing it, it's less ideal, leaving everything to online order.
Yeah. So I heard like several different tracks of kind of iterative learning, and I think of the build, measure, learn process, and it sounds like I heard you talk about even just choosing what technologies you're going to use and kind of iterating forward in terms of the capabilities. But then even within the technology, it's like really learning the ins and outs of that and figuring out how to train, create the right training data set and to get the output you're looking for. But then even that next step, if you're going to turn it into physical art of some form,
it's a whole other piece of effort, like a whole new process you have to worry about.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, I just kind of remembered too, like another piece of advice I have for anyone watching us who kind of wants to understand what it means getting into it, is a massive edge that understanding the technology gives me, which is why I recommend that's where you start with research and understanding, is it changes rapidly. I very easily remember when this technology just came out and it wasn't very good at art. It was not very good. But of course, I could still easily see there being a demand for this kind of work because it's unique. It's from AI, right? It's its own, quirky and messed up way of showing things is a unique perspective for art that people, want to see. But if I had told myself, hey, this is where it's at, this is where the workflow and the technology just needs to be for my understanding in this snapshot right now, I would be in the dust compared to where I'm at now. It's more important that you keep track of how the technology evolves, how you keep learning the new syntax of this evolving technology, how the next trained model, understands more parameters, how that impacts your ability to test certain keywords. And, it sounds like a bunch of, mumbo jumbo right now, but those are all very important terms that you will need to use, even for the simplest efforts of just trying to generate one image. So there is a difference between just having the technology and having something that makes a product versus sitting on the edge of this wave that's constantly evolving, pushing into new models, new versions, becoming more complex. You shouldn't be satisfied with a model that looks pretty good and I'll leave it there. Because other people are going to steamroll you if you're not getting ahead on the next best way to use it.
Yeah, it's almost like it's process, but it's also just that adaptation to the changes that are happening in the environment and the technology, which is just proliferating so fast at this point.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's just going to keep being very rapid evolution in this space. I'd say is the real challenge. Yeah.
So what's new in your world? What are you working on right now? And what are you thinking about for the future? What's that look like?
Yeah, thank you. So right now, it's kind of a big collision of compromises, because as much as I love running my business and the impact that I know I have on people, my real passion as an entrepreneur is something that I have to give more sacrifice to, because at my age and where I'm at in life, there's more risks I can take. So right now I have a pretty decent business. I have a brand, but it's in the world of art, right? The market cap can only be so big. The real impact I can have on people's lives can only be so important. So I have bigger, grander ideas for a kind of business I want to start in the future. So in order to go down that path, I can't keep doing what I'm doing right now forever, as much as I love doing it. So right now, I'm looking for full-time corporate work, right? You know the process. The economy is not very nice in that department right now. But the reason I'm choosing to do so is because the next kind of business I want to start is very involved in data, and I will need a lot of investors. So in order to hedge the advantages into my favor, I know it will increase the likelihood of getting substantial investment if investors see that I have worked at a corporate position for X number of years. And that's the sacrifice I'm going to have to take with the focus of my time, for the next 2 to 5 years of my life, if I really want to build something more important in the future.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, just even the way you're looking at that, it's maybe a full-time hustle that's kind of a side hustle in the sense of it's like helping you to kind of fuel the engine, but also to prepare you in terms of like some of the maybe more technical pieces that even stands behind AI, not just the application of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And my business isn't going to die. I'm still going to be really excited to learn how every next iteration of the technology I'm using keeps evolving and how I could keep ahead of it. However, I'm really just moving it very much to the back burner, like a weekend hobby type thing, which is really going to tone down the ability for me to work on what I have been. But yeah.
So if someone's watching this and thinking, wow, I'd love to really, get some customized art, there have some specific things I'd like to do, and I'm just not happy with things that are out there. What are some ways someone might, reach out to you or get in contact with you or just see some of your work? What are some of those channels?
Great question. So I have 2 plugs. First, because I'm kind of winding down on my branding and shifting my focus, the best way to get something custom from me, and if you're really interested and even just want to talk, right? You don't necessarily have to buy a product from me. You can get me at my email at Grant, letter E, Cooper 99@gmail.com. And if you're interested in seeing all the socials and branding of my company, which again, sadly, I'm going to stop putting focus into, it's all going to be there. I will provide a link so that can be put in the description of this video, hopefully. So.
Absolutely, yeah, and we'll have all that in the description down below if you want to connect with Grant. You want to see some of the artwork that's been created. Before we wrap up, I kind of feel like since we're talking AI, I gotta ask the question. Is AI taking over the world? Is this like the next Skynet? What gotta ask that question, right?
Ooh, yes and no, right? We're all witnessing it right now. There's a lot of different realities and perspectives you could say, which one, you could already justify that AI already has, right? It's already in so many facets of our daily life. We just don't think about it like that.
Yeah.
Right? Like any single thing ever marketed to you has gone through many different AI and algorithms. A delivery process of your package or your mail has gone through, organization algorithms. There's no untouched part of your life that hasn't been involved with AI so far. The other half is people could say, oh, it's not as impressive or as impactful as we thought it was. Oh, it's just a, chat GPT. Maybe you could write a few papers with it, but it's not, you can't tell it to invent the cure for cancer, right? I've heard all these kinds of arguments, and it really comes down to your own perspective. But for me, my own perspective is hopeful, is that it's here. How can I use it right now for me? What are some new ways I can involve it in my life to make my life better? And that's exactly, that question's how I started my business, and that's also how I operate with discovering a lot of other stuff. But it's funny to me hearing people be really pessimistic for no other reason than, like some Hollywood-esque future outcome description that's like not substantiated at all. so I think it's funny. I think people should be concerned. I think the drive of the reason AI is made is to make life better for all of us. So even if there are unintended consequences, I think what's more important to know is those unintended consequences are something that a new solution can be invented for, right? It's not a problem being invented for no reason. At least that's the way I see it.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, you're really kind of looking at it through that entrepreneurial lens of it's a new set of capabilities, tools, resources to address existing and future problems, and then looking for the opportunities, the way to build businesses around that. So
yeah, it's a tool. It's a tool. It's not a new person to replace other people, right? Yeah. So that's how, well, to kind of answer for anyone who's concerned about whatever AI is going to do to their job, learn how to understand it and how to use it. That's going to protect you the best.
Yeah.
That's my advice. Yeah.
That's awesome. Great. Well, Grant, thanks so much for joining the channel today. And it's just great to hear about your business and just the way that you're really just, finding ways to merging all the opportunities that come from generative AI in different ways, and then bring that into business opportunities. Really just appreciate all your insights and perspective.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. And as always, or as I always like to say, keep going.